Kenya debt burden to hit 7 trillion shillings by 2022. And of course, this has to deal with the public funding gap that we are experiencing. The debt burden will hit 5.6 trillion by June next year. Domestic debt stands at 2.5 trillion, while foreign debt hits 2.6 trillion. So a lot of the borrowing is more than 50% of our public debt right now. Concerning, when you think about how much we're borrowing to fund a lot of these capital projects, many of which are under the Big Four agenda.
Let me allow me to comment on that. And I think the starting point should be, which are the most indebted countries in this world? Among the most indebted countries in this world include Japan, a highly industrialized society. It's a very indebted country. Others include America. Currently, a vast majority of the American debt is held by the Chinese government. So the point is, we must agree and understand, when it comes to debt, it is not a bad thing per se. The problem is, once we get that debt, do we employ that money to productive sectors? Never go get money to pay recurrent expenditure. Right. That is, to buy fuel or to pay people's salary. But if you are to get that money and you build roads, you build infrastructure, to me that's a positive thing. So therefore, I think this notion which is being penduled around that the government of Uhuru Kenyatta is an irresponsible government, to me it is wrong. Number two, also we must also tell Kenyans, it is Parliament under the law which has the power to extend what we call the borrowing ceiling. Every year, I think, or I don't know how many times you will find a certain proposal is brought before the National Assembly, seeking National Assembly to push up that threshold. I was there in last Parliament. It was brought before the National Assembly. So the point is, as you point fingers to the President Uhuru Kenyatta, remember the role of the National Assembly when it's come to the issue of increasing that borrowing ceiling or pushing it up. Number three, we must also appreciate what the government of Uhuru Kenyatta has done when it comes to the resources it has obtained externally or even domestically. Number one, we have seen an increase of paved roads. In fact, between 1963 to 2013, when you look how many kilometers were paved, you will realize, since Uhuru Kenyatta became the president, we have almost doubled that number of kilometers. Remember, before 2013, Kenya was energy deficient. Currently, we have now another problem, which is an inverse of that. We have excess energy capacity. It is the one which is making our bills to be high, because ideally no energy should be idle. So therefore, we have an excess energy capacity. And that is funded through borrowing. Ask Kengen, they get that money externally. So to me, I think as you debate, remember what the government has done once it has procured those debts. We have seen improvement in infrastructure through that borrowing.
Well, you know, and as much as that's great, the infrastructure, Kenyans will say, but taxes have gone up. You know, I'm feeling this pain in my pocket, despite the fact that we have wonderful roads and pavements and whatnot. They're going to new tax measures to fill that funding gap, and it's hurting the wananchi.
I want to agree with my, for the first time, I want to agree with Uhuru Kenyatta. Well, we hardly agree on anything. But indeed, I want to say that the debt burden is really high. It's true, but in as much as the debt burden is high, what we see happening is important. I'll give you an example of what's happening in my constituency. But there is the best place to visit nowadays. I want to tell Kenyans that you must come to Tiaty, because we have peace, and there is something very interesting going on there, the development of geothermal energy, which is, I think is one of the biggest projects in the country now. And it's being funded through these debts you're talking about. And it depends on what government does with the borrowing. It takes a shorter period now to move between Nairobi and Mombasa because of the SGR. I am aware that there are negotiations to build dual carriageway from Nairobi to Mombasa and even beyond towards Malaba. These are the things we need to see happening. So it's really, it's a burden we have to bear if we have to develop. But the economists at Treasury have really to look at very innovative measures of trying to sustain this debt repayment without necessarily overtaxing Kenyans, because you cannot build the economy by taxation. You cannot. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I look at it in an holistic way. I mean, you cannot compare a country like Kenya with the superpowers like Japan and the US, as much as the two are highly indebted, but remember they have the capacity. Right now, as a country, we must not hide ourselves. Let's call a spade and not a big spoon. We are not on the right trajectory. Our debt, countries have gone through that path. You've seen Sri Lanka where it is now. Sri Lanka is basically losing its port, with its natural heritage to a foreign nation. Other countries, Pakistan, have also going through the same route. You've seen Malaysia actually rejecting finances from China. So countries have gone through that path without regulating their debts. You cannot borrow beyond your means. Yes, you need debts, but we need to accept as a country we've borrowed beyond our means. That's why we go back to the tax. You cannot say, yes, this man has come to build roads. Yes, this man has gone into the energy sector. The common citizen will tell you, keep your roads, but give me my taxes. I mean, why are you taxing me beyond my means? Just for you to build a road that I don't even use. He'll tell you, I can even walk. I can walk through mud. It's okay. But give me back my taxes. So we need to really be very honest that we are taxing this Kenya. Somebody somewhere said, I think that was Winston Churchill, that a nation that taxes itself to prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket and trying to lift himself up. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's where we are. And we need to not, this is not about supporting the president. Yes, we do support him. But remember, our country is run by structures. And we must agree that the Treasury has let this country down. And we must face them. And that's why we are saying the ministers should be in parliament. We ask them, we face them and tell them, you've let the country down. You get in Rotich, I mean, it takes you a month for him to come and appear in a committee. But if he was a member of parliament, you will tell him, Rotich, go correct this one. You've let this country down. We cannot borrow beyond this. Yes, we need the debts to develop. But I mean, what are even the collaterals against which we are taking this debt? We need to ask ourselves, are we losing even the port of Mombasa without knowing? The other day I was telling my constituents that some of these chicken you are rearing around may be having a debt on them. One day people will come and take all your chicken away. So we need to have very sober mind when you are talking about this debt thing.
Which is where the opposition comes in,
yes,
in terms of reining in the debt appetite in the country.
And thank you for mentioning it, because I think the opposition has been saying this, we are over-borrowing. Colleagues, borrowing is good. There we all agree. All business people, everybody borrows to do something. But you see, like the case of the two or other countries that we are citing, yes, they borrow, but they also have the capacity to pay back. In our case, we have borrowed, and as we all acknowledge, somehow this borrowed money has never gone to users that would actually raise back the amount and we pay those debts without having to burden somebody else who is not even yet born. I think this is where it is hurting. It is hurting because right now, we know of countries which are even paying higher taxes, but the services are available. In Kenya, yes, we are talking about some of the roads that have been built. But if you ask me today, I will tell you in this country we can still categorize Kenya into a Kenya 1, Kenya 2, Kenya 3, and Kenya 4. Even Kenya level 5, where you don't even see a pole of an electricity. You know, people are in darkness in this very country. We are still having the most rugged roads, even in my county where I come from. And what we are saying is, when we reach a level where we keep borrowing and borrowing and we are not able to use that money to raise amount which is able to pay it back, I think we need to accept and in humility realize that, okay, we had planned to do A, B, C, D. This is what I was bringing in when I was saying that this issue of high taxation, even on the fuel things, we said, let it be temporal. Why? Because we have to relook at all these agendas. Just like a family, if you realize you wanted this and you can't raise it, the best thing to do is saying, this one can wait, this one we can go on. And then we cut our quote according to size. This is what we are not doing in Kenya. And then sealing the loopholes. Like this giant called corruption. We are losing a lot of money in frauds. And our Auditor General always raises these issues of questions of monies that cannot be explained what they did. And therefore, we cannot encourage just to borrow for the sake of borrowing because one road has been built. The other day, somebody amazed me. There was this the Eastern bypass, this one from the airport to side of Ruiru. I learned the other day, somebody was telling me that the road was supposed to be a kind of a dual carriage, but one side of it disappeared. Where did it go? And yet we are borrowing to make the road. So I would want to encourage our president, whom we are all supporting. Sometimes it's also good to be realistic and pragmatic. When it can't work, let us say it can't work. Then we thin down what it is that we thought we could achieve for the nation. I think any normal and objective human being would do that. And so, not at a personal level, but now at a national level.